Hi everybody and welcome to the Property AI Report. This is your weekly digest of all things property and AI. My name is Mal McCallion. I am your host. I run a business called modelprop.ai. We help property professionals and other businesses to navigate their way through the brand new world of AI. And it's a world that's just got a lot bigger over here in the UK, and that's going to form a big part of our property news. We also then have some technology and AI news before our regular property tool of the week. And then our weird AI of the week occasional feature is also in for this week with some really strange stuff. Anyway, but without further ado, we shall get stuck into the first section. Every week is called Property News. So this week's property news is dominated by the fact that everybody is not making quite as much money from selling property as they used to. So this is a report out this morning by Hamptons, bless them. And what they are portraying is what's a relatively good news story as being something really bad. If you read the headlines, which scream that sellers are making a record low profit from selling their properties this year, then that is portrayed as basically, first of all, a reason to read the story, which obviously is the clickbait point. And then actually when you get into it, it just says that since 2015, so when it says a record low, it basically means the last 9 years, 10 years. But actually what it is saying is that now you only make £91,000 profit on your property from when you bought it 8.9 years ago, compared to when you were making over 100,000 last year and then 122 the year before. It's a decrease for sure. It is not a huge decrease really, but it's still a profit. But yes, it's being portrayed as being a bit more Armageddon-y, apocalyptic-y than it really is. And that's nothing really new. It always seems to be that we have to find these stories about the housing market that either have to be absolutely terrible or absolutely amazing. And I guess it's been a little while since we heard the absolutely amazing ones. We're in this cycle, it seems, where every newspaper all the time seems to have bad news about the economy and about everything, indeed, everything around us. So this actually, you could portray this as reasonably quite a good news story based bearing in mind all of the other economic news that we're getting right now, that actually this seems to be holding up reasonably well, and actually property prices aren't doing too badly. But yes, we've found a way to make it sound like once more we are on the precipice of certain doom, despite the fact that actually people who are selling right now are making a reasonable profit on doing so. Anyway, if you're based in Merthyr Tydfil, then this is even better news for you, because you are making far more than percentage-wise than anybody else. Again, it's 68% more for your home than you paid in Merthyr Tydfil. Congratulations. That has taken over from glamorous Barking and Dagenham, that last year was the top spot. And yeah, generally, if you're in Wales, then you're in a pretty good position. So congratulations to everybody out there. And you know what? Kind of congratulations to everybody else as well, because it seems to be fine. So yes, I guess the day we see a headline that says things are fine is the day that, I don't know, maybe the system of reporting is going to collapse. But it certainly seems to require a big swing one way or the other before it makes it into any sort of story these days. So that is the kind of broad property news story. We're going to dive into a couple of more specific ones now, as we tend to do on the Property AI report. And this one's slightly different because it goes back to a time where everybody was talking about Boomin. Now, you may recall that Boomin was set up by brothers Kenny and Mikey Bruce back in 2019, actually launched at the end of 2020. So just as the pandemic was rattling through. And its main aim was to bring different types of ways of generating leads in a portal-esque environment. That's what I'm going to call it. They pretended they weren't really going after the portals, although in due course they wanted to. But the whole kind of premise was that actually, if you can get consumers onto the site looking at other things and playing around with off-market property information and various other stuff, then what you're really doing is trying to build a kind of earlier stage audience for your property website, and that will then generate consumer leads via seller leads much more quickly than the portals do, or earlier in the process than the portals do. So it's not a bad idea, genuinely. And look, as regular listeners, viewers will know, my background is portals, and I love them dearly as a piece, as a kind of as a marketing medium. I don't necessarily love the businesses that are out there doing this right now for various reasons that I will not return to just now, because I think I've probably spoken a lot about them. So go listen to last week's, or I don't know, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, if you want to find out a little bit more about that. But I will just say that Boomin as a concept was not bad. I think that it got, in the end, I think about £30 million invested. A lot of it was by the Bruce brothers. But the reason it is back in the news today is it entered liquidation at the end of 2022. It was seeking another 20 odd million in funding to add to its 30 million that it already got, seeking another 20 million about April time 2022. That didn't quite come to pass, and then they shut the doors. I think there's 80 odd people made redundant at the end of 2022, so just over 2 years ago. And now the liquidators are finally getting to the selling the IP, the intellectual property, and various other bits and pieces. And it appears that, perhaps unsurprisingly, Michael Bruce, one of the co-founders, is very intent on acquiring the IP that that Boomin made using its 20 million quid, 30 million pounds of investment, and he set up a business 3 or 4 months before Boomin actually expired. So obviously, when there was the failure to get the extra 20 million in April, I think this business, which is called My Bespoke Room, was set up in the June or the July, and then by the November, when it all collapsed, then this is when it seems My Bespoke Room started to look at potentially acquiring the intellectual property of Boomin. Look, it's not something that's unusual. I've seen businesses before that the founders have been in the primary position to acquire the assets of a business that they have been in charge of as it has gone under. I think one of the arguments for them being able to do it is that they are best positioned to understand what the benefits of that intellectual property, that IP is, and therefore they can leverage it the best, and therefore they're the most likely to pay the most for it from the administrators. However, I think it always just leaves a little bit of a weird taste in the mouth when something that has been had so much spent on it, and in this case up to 30 million quid, is then sold to the person that spent that money in a new business, and they are then able to use it and leverage it for far less. It's going to be interesting to see whether it all comes together and finally is sold off, but there were some pretty cool things in there. I think they had this kind of property playground where there were a number of different products and services that were in there, things like Sneak Peek and Matchmaker, but which were novel. So I think Sneak Peek was where you could see properties that were going to be coming onto the market before they actually hit, which is actually something quite similar to what On the Market tried to do as well. But also the other products and services that they introduced, such as Matchmaker, were a little bit too kind of niche to gain that sort of mass following, and they were a bit more difficult to understand as well, to be fair. So look, let's see how it pans out going forwards. I do think that the demise of Boomin was really driven by a lot of antipathy from traditional estate agents towards the Bruce brothers because of what they did at Purple Bricks. Obviously, for those again that aren't aware, the Bruce brothers, before Boomin had set up Purple Bricks, they had basically rammed home a message to consumers that traditional estate agents were essentially stealing from them by by Purple Bricks' commisery campaign, saying you are really stupid essentially if you pay a commission fee to an agent, which did a lot of damage to the market, did a lot of damage to some really good estate agents along the way. So I think that, and obviously I spoke to a lot of agents at the time, that they were quite happy to take the free periods on Boomin and enjoy essentially spending Kenny and Michael's money, because they felt that they had taken a lot off them essentially. And now that, and then when it came to the crunch and Boom was looking to then charge, then everybody just went, do you know what? Nah, it's not going to be worth it. And that was in the end why it failed. So again, it's just a sort of bit of a footnote to the Boomin story, but interesting that it's come back again this morning. But yeah, going to be interesting to see whether the business My Bespoke Room does in the end acquire those financed IP tools, and whether that's something that then circles back somehow into the property market to see if we might want to acquire it or pay for it in a different way. But anyway, so that's again something quite interesting within our sector that's happening this week. Another thing is our old friends Rightmove. Now, this unusually for me, I have to say, made me smile a little bit about Rightmove. So they did an advert last week with an influencer called Selling Sunderland. Which obviously riffs on the idea of Selling Sunset, which is the stateside real estate property TV show that's got all about the glamour and all about the jets and the luxury cars and the amazing penthouses, where essentially what you're trying to do is to maximize the sales value of any particular glamorous property by pitching the sunset and how well it looks through your amazing glass windows. So Selling Sunderland, as one might expect, does not necessarily have quite the cachet of Selling Sunset. But yeah, but it's funny and it's quite a cool idea, and bravo to them for that. Clearly, one might argue that they've got so much money that they really should be coming out with ideas like this, and probably more of them, to be honest. But you know, credit where it's due. They have got around to doing something that is quite interesting. I don't know how they're going to brand it when they get to the likes of Hull, Gilberdike, and other sort of areas. But yeah, no doubt they'll give it a swing. I don't know how much it has translated into more leads for agents. I know that agents have been saying to me a lot that the volume and quality of leads of Rightmove has gone down and is not, by no means is as significant in terms of its value for money as it has been historically, and indeed particularly bearing in mind the price increases that are coming down the track this year, early this year. So it's a bit of a kind of sop to the market and to actually being seen to be doing something, but it was quite amusing. And from that perspective, at the very least, there's something that they are demonstrably spending that money on, although obviously shoveling the rest of it into their shareholders' pockets, as we know from again previous topics. So that is our property news for this week. We are now going to have a very quick look at the AI and technology news that's happening, not just in this country, but also around the world. So the big news of the last week in our AI space has been the chief exec of OpenAI, Sam Altman, essentially saying that AGI is pretty much here. All right, now AGI stands for Artificial General Intelligence. Now, it is a particular type of AI that has had a variety of different descriptions over the time, definitions over time. But broadly, it's understood as when AI gets so intelligent that it is able to do the majority of human tasks competently, human economic tasks competently. So it can actually work and think and do and attend to things in the way that humans could do. And he's basically saying that AGI is due this year, really. Now, obviously, there is a lag, and there's always a lag between it becoming available and actually it becoming useful, because it takes time for people, and I include us, a model prop in that, to work out how to productize it and how to actually use this new technology to be deployed in the various environments that it needs to be deployed in. So we obviously focus very hard on the property market, particularly residential property. But yes, it is up to people in sectors, in each individual sector, to then look at this technology and understand what it can actually mean. But we have seen over the last few weeks, let alone months, AI take a significant step forward. So in particular around reasoning. So you're able to use models such as OpenAI's O1. They're shortly going to bring out O3, or is going to make available O3. And these are reasoning models. So these take a little bit more time, because what they use is what they call chain of thought reasoning to actually check its own work. So as it's worked something out, it then goes back and with its AI will then go back and check that actually this is really true. And then it goes off and spins up more thoughts about that particular thing that is concluded. So it's actually really smart. And if you get a chance to have a go on it, as I say, O1 from ChatGPT is good. Deep Research from Google is accessible only in the States at the moment, but it's coming over here soon. Apparently that's amazing. And there are a variety of others. There's another one that was released this morning, an open source one called Sky One, I think. And that's going to be made available essentially for free, which carries its own potential challenges, which I'll talk about in a sec. But yes, these reasoning models, you can put in any topic and it will reason and give you a full kind of strategy on various things. It's really clever and better than just the chat. I say just the chat that you get from ChatGPT 4.0, which again is still incredible technology and really smart. This O1, this O3 reasoning models are just a step above. That was the kind of next step on the way to AGI, artificial general intelligence. Sam Altman is now claiming we are nearly there, which again is going to be amazing from a capability point of view. Yes, it's going to pose some challenges from a regulatory point of view, but I think that very much what I always encourage clients, people that I speak to all the time is you've got to understand it. All right, you may worry about it, you may be non-stop excited about it. I, yes, towards the excitement side of things, but I do also share worries about certain things too. I think that it is the case that almost every technology we have ever created as humans has that kind of combination where whether it's fire, whether it is wheels that can run people over, or whether it is electricity that can electrocute you in the bath, but also heat your house. All of these things have carried risks with them. Yes, again, I hear you saying, but this can actually learn itself and therefore is even more scary than all this stuff. Absolutely hear that too. But what is also the case is that we're working really hard on alignment and making sure that AI does dovetail into what we as a species want it to do. So yes, there may be some leakage. Yes, there may be some danger, of course, but this is a technology and a use for it, uses for it that will fundamentally change how we are able to operate as humans. It enhances our capacities, our intelligence on tap. We're going to build compute that is just going to be everywhere, and I think that is going to enable us to solve so many more problems. So yes, again, are on the side of excitement. Obviously have concerns as well as any right-thinking person would. But yeah, there is a huge amount happening right now, and it's just going to keep on getting bigger and better, I believe. And I think it's going to be hugely powerful and hugely important for all of us. Which does bring me on to the next story in our AI tech news this week, which is that today, which is Monday the 13th of January, we had news from the British government, from Keir Starmer, that the UK is going to be focused on AI first. So essentially, the government is looking to make the UK a leader in AI. And currently, I understand third in the world to the US and China, but obviously miles behind as everybody else is. But the idea that, as I think the government termed it, injecting AI into the veins of the country, I think again is a sound one. That technologies like this come along rarely, and being able to be a leader, be part of the conversation, to be able to be seen to be developing things that are cutting edge, state of the art, I think is really important for our growth, for our productivity, for some of the more softer stuff, how we are seen in the world and how we see ourselves. So lots, I think, more flesh to be put on those bones, but it was heartening to hear that this is going to be a real focus for this government going forward. And I think it's the right focus, and I think it's going to help us as well to get over what are a lot of these fears, and some of them very justified fears around what actually AI is going to be able to do. Because once we start to see it genuinely providing benefit to us, understanding what it might mean for our children, and seeing how that's going to play out from a kind of life perspective, as well as an employment perspective, as well as a strategic perspective. I think all of these things are going to be really beneficial to the country, and yeah, I think it's a really exciting day as a result to see that is the direction of travel of this particular government. So yes, bravo to that, and yeah, excited to see how that all pans out and what we can all do with it. Actually, it's all very well from a theoretical basis, but actually, what does that mean for us in the property market, and how can this really supercharge what we're all trying to do? So great news there. The third story we've got in our AI news and AI and technology news this week is again something slightly left field. We've got John Deere, DERE, which some of you may know, depending on your level of interest in agriculture, is a tractor maker and has been for a very long time. And they are now doing robot lawnmowers. All right. So if you've got a little Roomba or Roomba equivalent running around your house, mowing, cleaning carpet, pretty soon you can have one sitting out in your garden mowing the lawn. Now, and more than that, using AI, John Deere is looking at how it can essentially landscape your garden and landscape pretty much anything. So this is again just some stuff that's come out of the CES, which is the Computer Electronics Show over in Las Vegas in the States last week. And there's lots and lots of stuff that's been released. And I'll share with you one of them in our occasional segment, Weird AI of the Week. There's a really interesting one coming up there. But this one is by no means a slouch when it comes to weirdness. So this is John Deere saying that they expect the mower could replace humans, and essentially it's going to be your carpet cleaner for your lawn. So look forward to that. That will save me literally hours every summer. And I'm very much looking forward to it because, yeah, mowing the lawn is just one of those things that you really want a machine to be able to do, right? That's coming soon. All right. Yeah, watch this space. All right, now it's time for our regular weekly look at our tool of the week. So our AI tool of the week this week comes from Pika Art. So Pika.art. Really amazing. All right, it's image stuff. And you probably know we've always been messing around with things like virtual staging. We look at animating these things for our prop clips, where you can basically build property videos just out of photos of properties, interior photos. But this is something else. This is essentially where you have two distinct photos or three distinct photos, and you can now get AI to merge them in what they call scene ingredients. So you use each of these three images as scene ingredients, and when you put them together and put them into Pika.art, then they will merge them together, and you can have things such as you and the Mona Lisa having a chat in the cinema. You can have you looking around a virtually staged house as a potential buyer. You can have you doing a fashion show. You can have you, I don't know, dressing up as a Christmas tree. There's so much that you can do with this stuff. It's insane. So in terms of what you will be able to use it for, or how you can bring it into your business, that's probably going to take a little bit of time before we work all that out. But in terms of just really cool stuff, and if you want to see where AI is going, then yeah, it's worth just having a little play around in there. I think you get a couple of free goes just to see what it does. But yes, have a look at Pika.art for their scene ingredients. It is really fun and very silly. All right, finally for this week, let's duck into that weird AI of the week. As regular listeners know, this is an occasional segment that we put in whenever we find something that is really bonkers in the world of AI and technology. This week, again, courtesy of the CES, the Computer Electronics Show, there is essentially a robot cat that will blow on your tea. Okay, so if you've got a cup of tea or coffee, or indeed hot chocolate, then you can use it's a little plastic cat that you put on the side of your cup, and you can actually program it to the strength of the blows, the airflow that it will emit across the surface of your hot liquid in order to cool it down. And this obviously saves you from having to do that yourself. So just imagine what you're going to be able to do with that extra time that you now have from not having to blow your cup of tea or coffee. And instead you can stare out the window while you're waiting whilst this cat does it for you. Or you could, I don't know, go and take a little walk around the office and come back, as long as it'll only take about a minute or so. But yes, it is one of the many reasonably crazy things that people have created for CES. There's a spoon that you can buy for $127 that will slightly salinate, so it will make your food slightly more salty than it otherwise was. One might argue that actually you could just get some salt and salt it, and that would probably be a lot cheaper and a lot quicker. But listen, if technology allows you to make this $127 spoon, then why wouldn't you go for it? So yeah, there's actually plenty of really amusing stuff if you want to get stuck into the CES 2025. Go and have a look online for some of those things. But yeah, this particular cat, which is called Fufu, is one of the more out there ones that amused us here at Model Prop mightily. So listen, this is the end of this week's Property AI report. Thank you so much for joining me and listening in. I'll be back next week with the next Property AI report. And thank you once more. We will speak to you then, and have yourselves a really great week. All the best. Take care. Bye-bye.